Welcome to Bon Jovi Discussions. Today I have my buddy Paul, all the way from Australia, where it's late at night right now, and he's on. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, all good.
Good,
Good to
good.
see you.
Good to see you. Today we are going to chat about this gem right here. This is John's first solo album. It was a soundtrack for Young Guns 2 movie back in 1991. Um, all of the songs were written by John. It was produced by Danny Korchmore, I think
And
was
he
his
caught
name.
my ear.
And pretty much the whole album and the movie, is all about Billy the King and Pat Garrett. But I also think he was writing about the movie, but I also think that he was writing about himself and where he was at that point in his life. Because the
Yeah.
band was massive in the '80s. Did four albums, two major headliner tours, and they were worn out, as you know, by the end of the New Jersey tour. And so it's funny that the New Jersey tour, it ended in February of 1990. John started to write this album from April to June, and then it was released in August.
It was a quick turnaround. Yeah.
So, he didn't take too much time to rest. He was kind of back at it again. And I also think, too, that this was a stage in his career, too, where he had to prove himself that no, no disrespect to the band, but I think he wanted to kind of prove to himself that he could still do it without the band. Because at that time,
Yeah.
too, they weren't sure where the band was going at that point.
At the end of that tour, I think that's very true. What the future held was very much up in the air at the end of the Jersey tour.
Exactly. So what's your overview on the album? What do you feel about it?
Look, I mean, for me, this album was kind of the gateway into the whole Bon Jovi. It was at that time where I was like 12, 13. It's the first album I ever bought from a particular artist. And at that point in time, I wasn't really, I was like, I was aware of music. I was into it, but I was probably just paying attention to what was on top 40 radio and things like that. And but I was big into movies. I'd started to really watch movies, and I remember distinctly at that point in time there was a few films that as a 12, 13-year old that I was watching probably earlier than I should have been because of but there was movies like RoboCop and Big Trouble in Little China and Lost Boys and Young Guns. The original Young Guns was one of them, and I just remember distinctly 12-year-old in England watching. There was a TV show on, and every Saturday morning in England called the Chart Show, and basically what it would do is it's just show music videos, but it'd have little captions at the bottom. And I just remember one Saturday morning, this song came on, and I was like, "What's this?" And the visuals start showing Emilio Estevez, Kiefer Sutherland, clips from the Young Guns 2 movie long before it was, and I didn't know at that point. Obviously, it was long before the internet and anything like
Oh,
that. And
yeah.
then I had no idea there was a sequel coming out until I saw this. But it was like, what is this song? What it was just such a big thing to process. It was like there's a new Young Guns movie coming out, but also it's like it's this. Who's this hairy rock god on the top of a mountain singing this song that just sounds like nothing I've ever heard before. Um, so once I heard that song, I was kind of hooked, and then the over the next couple of months, the album came out. The album came out a few months before the movie came out in the UK, so I just followed it and went and got the album. And as soon as I heard it, it was kind of like it was a door opening experience into not just Bon Jovi, but kind of rock music in general. I think
So this
it was kind of a pivotal moment in my life, and it's still one of those albums that I probably go back to on a monthly basis. It's that big of a deal to me. This particular album,
this is the album that kind of started it all for you for your
all
fans.
of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally. And it was from listening to this album and then kind of finding out who Bon Jovi was, talking to kids at school and realizing that other kids were aware of it as well. And I distinctly remember this one day at school talking to this guy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Bon Jovi's in this band Bon Jovi." And a couple of weeks after I heard Blaze of Glory, he gave me the New Jersey album, and it was like, whoa. It was like
Changed
I
everything.
got it. Then I bought Slippery Away. I bought 7800 and the debut album, and from then on, it was just that just opened the door. Then it was like, listening to Aerosmith, Def Leppard, the heaviest stuff like Metallica, Pantera. All of it came from the Blaze of Glory album, and then other stuff like Springsteen, and it all. This was the birth of it all for me. This is like the birth of my induction into rock music.
Yeah, that's great. I remember the first time I heard this album. I was 8 years old, and I just became a fan of Bon Jovi. But
Yeah,
When Crush was coming out in 2000,
yeah.
that's when I became a fan. I got that album, and I loved it so much. So I begged my dad to buy me another CD. And this is the same time too when stores were you could either buy it on CD or you could buy it on cassette. So
That's it.
my
Yeah,
first album was Crush on CD, and
yep,
come July of 2000, I wanted another one. I was like, oh, because they had 7 albums prior, including the solo, and so my dad said I could either get one CD or I can get 2 cassettes. So what are you going to do as a new fan? You're like, okay, well, I can listen to 2 new albums, and so I got Crossroads and Blaze of Glory on cassette. So
yeah,
those were my second and third albums that I bought. And I remember I loved Blaze of Glory and Crossroads so much that I played it all the time on loop, and eventually it ate your tape. And so
yeah.
so eventually I got both CDs that summer.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time listening to this on cassette and stuff, and I thought it was so good. And I didn't know who Billy the Kid was or
No, at that point you wouldn't have known about the
as
movie or
as
anything
an
like
8 year
that.
this tall,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And but I still appreciated the songs, and I really love the fun in some of the songs,
yeah,
and looking at the obviously watched the movie when I became a teenager, and it's a shame that only 2 of these songs made the album.
yeah. I made the movie. The sound, the
I'm
actual.
sorry,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, that made the movie, Billy Get Your Guns and Blaze of Glory. And this was actually this album was awarded John a Golden Globe, and I think it was nominated for a Grammy and Academy Award, if I'm not
I think it was
mistaken.
not. I think they played at the Academy Awards. The whole band
Yeah,
played at the
yeah.
Academy Awards. Yeah, yeah.
But he got a Golden Globe for the album, and he also appears in the movie for like a split second.
Yeah, split second. You get shot. Yeah, there's a scene where he blink and you miss it. Yeah, he
Yeah,
gets. Yeah.
and you can't even really notice him.
No,
Like
you have to actually. You would have to actually pause the thing to see the scene he's in. Yeah.
exactly. And then one last thing before we get into the songs. Another great thing about this album that it features Elton John, Little Richard, Jeff
Such
Beck,
an amazing. Yeah.
Peter Jackson. I don't think we're getting any, those big names there. So that was kind of cool too that he was working with other artists and so, back then these names were really big at the time, and they still
Yeah.
are. Back then that was very noble to
And it
have.
was at the time where he was launching the Jamco label, and he had Aldo Nova, who plays a big part on the album, was producing his Blood on the Bricks record at the same time, and John had a lot to do with that. Aldo Nova, I think his influence on this album in particular is pretty huge. He plays
Oh,
guitar on most of the tracks, and yeah, it was a really interesting period for the evolution of John as a songwriter and the basically what was going to become the next step for the band in
yep.
terms of the direction they were taking.
Right. And two more things before we get into the songs too. One was how the album started. So Amelia Estevez came to him to ask about if they could use "Wanted,"
Yeah,
and John took the script and said, I can write you a whole new song. And he wrote. And we'll get to the story about how he wrote "Blaze of Glory," but he wrote "Blaze of Glory" at a restaurant, and uh, and then he's like, I can write you a whole album, and then that's
yeah,
how it came about. And secondly, I know that he was so burnt out from touring, so I know that a tour was probably out of the question at that time.
yeah, yeah.
I kind of would have loved to have seen John do a small, like kind of like what he did for Destination Anywhere in '97.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Yeah.
So it would have been kind of cool to see a lot of these songs
And I
played.
think because it was a soundtrack record, it was always going to be a one that was never at
Yeah,
that maybe, if technology had been to the point where you could have done something more interactive where you could have movie
yeah,
and an acoustic performance, but I don't think we were quite at that point
no,
back then where you could have done that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a shame that a lot of these songs have never been played live.
yep.
Definitely.
Well, let's start digging into the tracks. The first one's Billy Get Your Guns, and I think this is a great intro to the album. I love when you hear Amelia Estevez in the beginning, "Hoo, I'll make you famous."
Yeah.
And it's funny because before I had seen Young Guns, so like I said, when I was 8 years old watching or listening to this album, I thought that was John saying that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
watched the movie, then I put two and two together. But obviously you've seen the movie too. I think this song is truly the story of Billy the Kid. All
It captures that character really well. I think it captures Emilio Estevez's performance across the two movies really well, and that he plays into the youthful kind of outlaw rock and roller, the Billy the Kid. He nails that character really well in both films, and I think this song is a kind of a celebration of that character in a way that it 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 really does capture the character, but also Emilio Estevez's take on the character. I think it's one of those songs and it's a great rock song, essentially. That's
oh
what we're
yeah,
talking about. I mean, that from the opening, the riff
and the
is a
drums
killer.
go
The
along with it.
drums, it's just such a, it's got so many different layers to it. It's a really great song for the movie, but it's also a great opening track for the album. And it's a big statement. It was the first time you would have heard John stepping away from the band, and it's like, well, here we go. This is a great rock song that he's able to do. But yeah, it still stands up. Such
Yeah,
a such
yeah,
an awesome song.
it's definitely the best track to put as number one, like you said, to introduce what the album is and how those drums and that guitar riff, like you said. It's such a great song. I think it should have been a single because I think it would
I
have
think
been,
so.
it could have been almost as big as a hit as Blaze of Glory, in my opinion.
Yeah, if they had to market it right and they could have even put it out. They could have put Blaze of Glory out before the movie came out, and then put, you know, Billy Get Your Guns out as it was rolling. Yeah, yeah, it could have been a single, no doubt.
And they use this. The only time you hear the song in the movie, one of the two songs during the movie is this is in the end of the credits, I believe. I don't
It's
think it's
right
in.
at the end. Yeah, I think you get Blaze of Glory just as the movie's finishing up. It's the riff kicks in right at the end, and then um, at the end of the credits, Billy Get Your Guns comes over. Yeah.
And it's really good live. John did it a couple times during the Destination tour.
Did
And
yeah.
the one performance, the one performance that I like is the backstage. I think it was a barbecue event for VH1. Have you seen that performance?
I think I've seen a couple. I think I have seen that one, but I remember the one in London that it was a Destination Anywhere show, and that was one of the ones where it got played as well. Yeah. But yeah, I have seen a couple of live versions, but that was the one that I remember distinctly was the one in London where he opened the show with Not Fade Away by the Stones, and Billy Get Your Guns, I think, came pretty soon after that.
Yeah, it's great live. Do you have a favorite lyric of the song that you like?
Uh, you know, in terms of the way that it sets up the movie and the imagery and the whole Western theme, I think, there's a whiskey bottle empty sitting on the bar. Some organ grinder singing about some sucker moving on. Whores are hanging out waiting to get paid. It's just because it repeats Billy Get Your Guns all the way through. It's a Billy Get Your Guns. There's a line, and there's Billy Get Your Guns. But there's so many great lines that are very cinematic and full of imagery. But yeah, that to me, it captures the movie really well.
It introduces the character, and what essentially what this whole movie is about, an
Yeah,
album. Mine's They Christened You with Whiskey, and There's Fire Running Through Your Veins.
yeah,
Well,
that's a great one too. Yeah,
just the same, and every night a bullet wears your name. And
yeah,
that's line, and every night a bullet wears your name, because everyone's after him.
yeah,
Everyone.
exactly. Yeah.
So I really
And that's
love.
a theme that runs through the album too. It's even in its darker moments, it's like this guy he's wanted, dead or alive.
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
is that.
So the next one is Miracle, and this was actually the second single to promote
Second
the
single.
album.
Yeah,
And
and
I would have to say on this whole album, I think this is the probably the best one lyrically. This used to be my favorite when I was a kid, this song, but now I have other favorites on the album. But I think this one stands out very well lyrically on the
still
album.
does. It has a lot of layers to this song. I think it's one that could be about the band, could be about John, could be about Billy the Kid. There's a lot of ways to interpret it,
I
and
always thought,
it's the
I
lyrics are beautiful. Yeah,
and I think he was also writing about himself a little bit.
a lot. Yeah,
The
yeah.
majority of the song, I think, is about just dealing with what's been dealt. It's about a lot of tragedy, having a lot of weight on your shoulders and just hoping for something better to come your way, a miracle.
It's that kind of thematic thing that runs through a lot of Bon Jovi stuff, where it's that triumph over adversity. It's trying to fight against the odds, need a miracle. Even when you're in your darkest point, there's still hope. I think that's something it's pivotal to the film in a way. It's like there's no way out for Billy the Kid and the Young Guns in the movie, but there's also at that point you're probably looking at John looking at himself and his own position in the world as a how old was he? Like, he wasn't even 30 at this point, and he was the biggest rock star in the world and didn't know where he was going. He was.
So that a lot of weight on your shoulders.
Yeah,
In the song. I
it's like
always
he's singing to himself. That a penny for your thoughts now, baby. Looks like the weight of the world's on your shoulders. It's like, who's he directing that to? Is it the character in the movie, or is it himself? And that's one of
yeah.
the key things to the song is is he directing it to the listener, to himself, to there's a multitude of ways you can look at the song. It's still one that it's why I go back to a lot, and it's one that you just can't separate from the video either.
The music video too
The
is
music video is
I
the
Isham directed that one, didn't he? I
I think
believe.
Wayne Ashton directed the Blaze of Glory video and the Miracle video.
Yeah.
But the
And
video it's such a great video. It's
yeah.
yeah.
And it takes you back to the photography. Was very simple for the album. That and then John on his guitar there, and so that sets the theme of the album and the movie. And then I also think the videos do too. The Miracle I think was filmed in New Mexico.
I think it was the trip that kind of inspired Dry County as well. I think where you got on his bike and you rode
Yeah.
with Dorothy and a bunch of friends, and they went out west and ended up in Mexico, and at that point. But the video itself is just such a celebratory video, and it's
Yeah.
got Matt LeBlanc out of Friends,
Yeah.
and
You know what part gets me, it makes me cringe every time I watch it, is when they're in the bar and they're doing shots of whiskey, I
the
think. And
shots of the tequila with the worm in it.
yeah, that always made me cringe.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I
yeah,
remember when I was a kid, I got the Crossroads VHS and had all the videos and had Miracle on it. And
yeah.
I'm watching, I'm like, "Ooh," like I always like, just every time I watch that to this day, I feel, oh, what would you do if that slug went down your throat, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, well, evidently, the worm, when it's in the tequila, it makes it stronger, or yeah. But it's one of those videos you wish you had been there, wish you could have been in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
If feeling down, put that video on. It's gonna do it. Jeff Beck playing that guitar solo in the bar,
Mhm.
and it is that whole outlaw thing as well. I think you know the band rides into town, they drink the bar dry, and then they run out again. I think there's that element to it as well, and kind of maybe is a reflection of the whole Bon Jovi experience, that they were, that was how they had lived. Um, a bunch of outlaws kind of coming into town, doing
Yeah.
what they wanted to do, drinking in the bar, meeting the girls, and then driving out the next day, kind of thing. It's yeah, but it's such a beautiful looking video. I think it's
Yeah.
captures the Western feel of the film, but also it's very colorful. It's got some great images in it. Yeah, and it's aged pretty well. I mean, you look at the way that a lot of music videos are now. It stands up. I
Yeah.
still think.
And I don't think he's ever done this one live, even on the Destination
I don't
part.
think. Yeah, no, no.
It's a shame because I think it'd do well. Do you have a favorite line in the song?
To me, I like the final line in it where he says it ain't all for nothing. Life ain't written in the sand. Uh, I know the tide is coming, but it's time to make a stand. Um, that kind of is a great way to end the song, but it also seems to be about himself and about the way that it fits in with the theme of the movie. It fits in with the theme of where he probably was in his own mind at that point.
Yeah. Mine, like you just said too, I think he was writing about himself too in this line. He said, "I'm just one man. That's all I'll ever be. I can never be everything you wanted from me. I got plans so big that any blind man can see I'm standing in the river. Now I'm drowning in the sea." I
Yeah,
think he was definitely writing about himself there, especially with
yeah, yeah.
who he was. He became the head of a major corporation and this big rock band and
It
everyone.
became that, yeah. Once he fired Doc McGee, and the whole it was a huge transitional period.
Yeah, like that. I never can be everything you wanted from me. I think that
Yeah,
had a lot to resemble the how they were constantly having to tour and promote, and John doing this and John having to do that, and just trying to please everybody. And
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so at the end of this song too, you kind of get the intro to Blaze of Glory, and it's apart from the movie, where you are not a god. Why don't you pull
yeah,
the trigger, find out, and then it
yeah, yeah,
leads to Blaze of Glory. So we'll talk about Blaze of Glory now. So I talked about, at the beginning of the video about how this album kind of came about that Amelia wanted to use Wanted Dead or Alive for the movie, and John didn't think it would fit, so he wrote. So him and I think Emilio, Kiefer Sutherland, and some other guys, they were in a restaurant.
yeah. There's a great interview recently. I think it was on British radio with
Yeah.
Kiefer
He
Sutherland. He
started
was
to
doing
write Blaze of Glory on a napkin.
on a napkin, yeah, while they were all sitting there.
And I think he recorded it like a week later, and it was done. And then he said, I think John wanted to write a whole album for the movie, and so they did. And if you listen to the song, it's very similar to Wanted. You
Yeah,
know, just the feel of it. It's a cowboy western type rock
yeah,
song. Um, And
It starts off with that kind of like slow acoustic sound and then builds. Yeah,
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 and obviously it's a huge hit, despite not being with the band. And one thing that I'm thankful for is that he does it with the band, and the band does it really good.
it
I mean,
became a band song. On the subsequent tours, it
yeah,
became a Bon Jovi song. I think the band brought a lot to it on the live shows, definitely.
yeah. Isn't Jeff Beck on guitar on this one?
I think Jeff Beck is on guitar on this one. Yeah, he plays the solo, and Aldo Nova again plays guitar as well as John.
Yeah. Um, and then have you ever noticed, right before the final chorus, with the drums are broken down, if you ever watched the Madison Square Garden show from Lost Highway tour when they're playing this song Blaze of Glory, it almost I never realized it until that show, but if you speed it up a little bit, it's almost the same intro to Always.
Ah, I'd have to watch that again.
Pay attention 'cause every time I listen to that on the album, I always think that if it's sped up just a little bit, it's pretty much the same intro to
Yeah,
all.
yeah, yeah.
So, but how do you feel about the song, Blaze of Glory?
Yeah, I mean, it's say it was the when it first came out, it was so amazing. I think it's like I say, it's is it as good as Wanted Dead or Alive? Probably not. But it's such an epic song. Lyrically, it's pretty obscure. Some of the lines in it, you're going, what are you singing about? With the
Oh, yep.
Colt in your stable, Cain was the able. There's some funny lyrics in it, but I think it's a statement of intent. It's like
Oh yeah.
John King. Yeah, any doubt whether he was able to cut it on his own without the band was pretty much blowing up with that song. Such a huge, it's just such a huge song, huge guitars, brilliant vocal delivery,
You were
and
mentioning
and the
earlier.
fact that he's, in the video again, it's him laid bare. It's him on his own. Probably, I think you what maybe the first time in a music video where it's just John on his own and it's him with the guitar
That was
standing
filmed.
out with the background of the American desert. It's such an iconic video, and
Yeah, it was
yeah,
filmed in Utah,
Utah.
and
Yeah,
the scenery is the scenery really reflects on the movie, and I love how they have it. The movie playing on
playing
the.
on the screen. Yeah,
Um, but you mentioned about earlier, Billy Get Your Guns, how those lines kind of introduce you to the character, and I really think the lyrics in this song too gives you the feel of what it was like to be a cowboy. Like in that first verse, I wake up in the morning and I raise my weary head, blah
yeah.
blah blah. It's
It's
giving
got
you
so much great imagery in it. Yeah,
that cowboy just continues on their journey and stuff
yeah,
like that. And another one that's really, chilling to me, once you watch the movie and, like the young boy that wants to be a cowboy, he wants to be like Billy the Kid. He-
yeah,
that line, you asked me about my conscience and I offer you my soul. You asked me if I'll grow to be a wise man. Well, I asked if I'll grow old, because this kid, he eventually ends up dying in the movie.
yeah.
Uh, I think that was about that young boy.
Yeah, let's see the 15-year-old boy that he drove to his grave. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a poem lyric, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you also mentioned John's vocals. I want to touch on that too. I mean, John's vocals on this song is absolutely out of this
mind
world.
blown. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You have a favorite line of the song?
Uh, I think with this one, it's you know, you're looking at I'd probably say each night I go to bed, I pray the Lord my soul to keep, and I ain't looking for forgiveness, but before I'm 6 foot deep. It's, you know, it's kind of it's a confessional. It's kind of, it's Billy the Kid, and you can see it's John reflecting on his own kind of mortality, but it's got some really great, lyrics all through it. It's just some of them are open to interpretation, put it that way.
Mine's, you asked me if I've known love and what it's like to sing songs in the rain. Well, I've seen love come, I've seen it shot down, I've seen it die in vain. I love the way he sings that, and
The delivery, that's the thing. There's so much emotion in the delivery, I think, in this song.
so next one is Blood Money, and
Blood Money.
this is my favorite one on the album. And I know that he's done it live a few times with the band. Never been able to see this one live. I'd love to. But I truly think that this is the ultimate story, the ultimate song about it between Billy the King, or Billy the Kid, and Pat Garrett. So people who haven't seen the movie, Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid are like best friends. And then eventually Pat Garrett gets paid and promised to be the sheriff or something if he kills Billy the Kid.
Yep, it's
So
yeah.
Blood Money is obviously about killing him for a ransom. And the line that I love is, "They made you a lawman with a badge made of silver. They paid you some money to sell them my blood." So I think it's brilliantly in the way that he sings this song too. There's so much passion and emotion in it. And it's a very good broken down song.
It's a really stripped down song, and it's also the song that he dedicates to Bob Dylan in the liner notes. And I think, to fully appreciate this album, and you do have to kind of give some acknowledgement to the Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid album that Bob Dylan made back in the 70s. And I think John took a lot of inspiration from that, especially in this song. And it's and it's a song that, it's interesting that it is so short. I know there's longer versions out there where it's expanded on, and I think there's like a 5-minute version where there's a lot more about the relationship between Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. But I think it was a wise choice to strip it back and just to put it on and just focus on these simple lyrics and the simple acoustic version of it. It's such a, and it's about that relationship between Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. It's such a it's about brotherhood. It's about, and again, there's duplicitous meanings to it. It could be about the band. It could be about the Blood Money. What are the band? Where are the band at? What are they actually? Are they selling their souls for the sake of their art? There's, you listen to it that way, where he says, "Blood money bought and then sold you, but your conscience is all you can take to your grave." It's about that integrity. Is he singing about where he's at in his own career, as well as what relates to the script of the movie as well. But it's such a simple song, really well done. Like you say, live, I think I had it on. I think I was just looking at the Dry County single.
It's on there. I
there
believe.
was like a few live tracks on. It's Only Rock and Roll, Waltz and Matilda with Tico on vocals, and on the second disc, which I couldn't locate, I think might be, but I think it's on that as well. I think it was a New Year's Eve performance where they played it.
And another great thing too about this one is I like how he plays harmonica on this song.
It's always good to hear the harmonica. Yeah,
I thought that was a really nice touch to the song. Because I think I've heard a demo without the harmonica, and it definitely sounds better having the harmonica in the song.
Yeah.
There's like 5 different, like you mentioned about the 5-minute one. I think that was a demo, and then there was like 3 other demos, and they're all great. So then let's go to the next one, Santa Fe, and this is truly a fan favorite, at least in the diehard fan base. This is a very, very popular one. And I think John's vocals really stand out in this song. I think they're, really powerful, and it's a very underrated song.
It is. I think it's one that probably, if you interviews over the years, it's probably one that John cites as the best song on the album. He said that a couple of times, that he thinks that this is the best one out of all of them, and it would be hard to argue with that, to be honest, because it is such a it's a pretty brilliant song.
Yeah, it's a very dark song,
Very
in my,
dark.
and
Yeah,
it's song, for the movie is all about going to Santa Fe for war and not asking for mercy because the world is what it is. It's a very brutally honest song. It's like my favorite line is, I blame this world for making a good man evil. It's this
yeah,
world that drive a good man mad, and it's this world that turns a killer into a hero. So I blame this world for making a good man bad.
yeah,
And that's the truth.
yeah. That's it, and it's just such an interesting arrangement on the song as well. From the strings on it, and I think Alan Silvestri, who did um, the actual the composing on the
Yeah.
album. That you don't get any of his if his. I think he did the original Young Guns movie as well.
Did he?
But I think so. I'd have to double check that. But it definitely feels cinematic. It's
Oh, yeah.
those big string arrangements, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's a one that's, and again, it's one that maybe if I was nitpicking, maybe it's a little bit, it's so huge that it's maybe a little bit overblown. And that would only be that would, if I was actually trying to criticize it, that would be the only thing I would say, that maybe it could have been a really good acoustic song as well.
Oh, that's a good point. I never thought of it acoustic.
But for me, I've heard it live acoustic. He's played it, I think,
Yeah.
on the might have been on the Circle tour. There was a
Yeah.
few shows where he played it with Bobby Bandiera and Dave, and they were just, basically, on some of the tours where they just go and play in the middle of they do the acoustic set. Santa Fe kind of came into that,
Yeah.
which gave it a different kind of, a different feel, a different atmosphere. But again, that would just be being overly critical, because I still think it is one of the most underrated songs John's ever written, and probably one of his best vocal performances that's been recorded.
Yep, I agree. It's definitely a fan favorite. Next one is Justice in the Barrel. And
Yeah,
so I mentioned as a kid listening to this song or this album, I'd never seen the movie, so I'm like thinking, what the hell are these? The voices in the beginning, like the Indian voice and the girl's voice, and I'm like, what the F is this?
yeah,
And so then obviously I saw the movie later on. But I think my favorite part about this song is the guitar intro. The dun, dun, dun,
yeah.
dun,
I
dun.
think there's again, this is such an unusual song. Um, and you mentioned the vocals from the female backing singers. I think that's one thing about that maybe doesn't get the credit that it deserves, because I think it's Maxine Waters and I think it
The,
was G3,
Julia
and
Waters and Myrna Matthews. It's
yeah,
on the
and
album.
they really bring some soul to the songs that they appear on. I think they're in Miracle,
Sing a drum
and Bang a Drum too.
and Dynamic
Um,
Living.
yeah, and yeah, it's such
Yeah.
an atmospheric song. Especially the opener. I think it's Lou Diamond Phillips that does the Indian chant at the beginning of it.
Is it?
If I'm right, yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
Um,
It's very good. Um,
but I
this
think what I love about it, it's like you said, the guitar, but the guitar solo at the beginning, and then the riff that comes in, and then the guitar during the song it's it's a strange guitar sound, but it's really it's a song that I go back to and always can. It always feels fresh when I listen to it.
Yeah.
And it's one of the songs that's really dark on the album as well. I think you guys say that the album does have that celebratory nature, but it also does a really good job at getting into the darker aspects of the character and the psyche. And I think that's probably where John was at as well. It was a dark period of uncertainty.
The way that I interpret this song is that there's no especially in the movie and the cowboy way, there's no justice, and justice is in your own hands. It's eye for an eye, and you only got yourself and your gun to protect you. No law.
Yeah,
And so, there's a line in the song, when only justice a man can see is the barrel of a loaded gun. That's your only
yeah,
consequence for doing something. Um, I really like the lyric too. I jumped headfirst into a bottle. I was looking for a friend, came up
yeah,
just nothing. I didn't find the truth. I only found the end.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the lyric I really like is, which always kind of sums up the Billy the Kid characters, where he says, "Guns talk to me in my sleep at night, and a gun somewhere is burning with my name." It's like
Oh,
he
that's chill.
knows,
Mhm.
yeah, he knows that there's a price on his head, that people are out there looking for him. People are, and you know what? That's probably what John was feeling about him. He was the poster boy. He never had critical success. Um, he was always the target for even the band being the biggest band in the world. John's always been a target for critics. And I
Yeah.
think it was, lines like that. It's like him really hitting back. But again, it's one of those lines that I think why the album's so underrated is he does such a great job as making it about the character as well as himself.
Absolutely.
It's a it's a I still think it's such an awesome song, Justice in the Barrel. It's one that I'll go back to time and time and again, and just appreciate it technically as well as lyrically. It's a cracker.
Yeah. Next one's Never Say Die. And this
Yep.
one, you're just talking about, John really writing about himself a lot. This one is, I would definitely say he was writing about himself and the band. Um, the song's all about being a pact, and which lyrics about the band, and then John writing about himself. The one line, there's a line, once I was afraid of love, but when it's your brother, those things change because love is another word for trust. So
Yeah.
I think it's talking about the band there. Have you ever listened to this song? Don't you think it kind of resembles Good Guys Don't Always Wear White?
Good Guys Don't Always Wear White, and I think Blood on Blood as well. I think there's definitely.
That's yeah.
I
I,
think I mentioned that to you before a few months ago on Twitter, that
yeah,
Never Say Die always seems like a good a companion piece almost to Blood on Blood, and that it's about brotherhood. It's about um, sticking together through thick and thin, and it applies to the young guns in the movie, but also I think it's a nod to the band as well. That I think John recognized that the band wasn't done, and this might have been a kind of a little way of referencing that.
yeah.
But
'Cause
it's just a great rock song as well.
I think this was like one of the last songs that was written for the album too, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, I
Um,
think so.
and I really like the drums too. I think the drums is what really stands out to the song for me.
Well, the drums on this whole album are great. I mean, Kenny Aronoff's a great drummer. I mean, and he does bring a lot to this album.
I'm
It's
trying to think of what other bands he worked for, Kenny Aronoff, because
he's been with Tom Petty in the was it Tom Petty? He's done a bunch of things. He's still
wasn't
working
he
now
a hired
with.
gun? Have you seen that documentary? I think wasn't that him?
Yes, yeah, he was
That
in
was
that
him.
too. Yeah. He's one of those session musos that's played
Okay.
with so many different. Yeah, he's been John Mellencamp. I said Tom Petty, but John Mellencamp was who he
Okay.
played with a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
He's incredible. Um,
yeah,
so
and yeah, he's played with everyone from the Smashing Pumpkins to I think he's Jerry Lee Lewis. You know, he's been around the block, and I think he does bring a lot of technical. But like, you know, the interesting thing with this album is like I think John said, despite all the technical brilliance that these people had, there wasn't that brotherhood that the band had. You know, maybe you know you can bring in all these different musicians, but it wasn't the same as you know,
oh yeah.
yeah. But
I,
it's interesting because I think the musicianship on this album's top class.
oh yeah. Next one, you really got me now. I think this is a really fun, and it's a shame that this didn't get into the movie.
Yeah.
I think it would have been perfect when they were, what do you call it, where the whores were in that. What's that called? Like a whorehouse or something like that.
Yeah, like a brothel or a
Ross,
bordello.
that's the one.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I think this song would have fit perfectly into
It
that.
was. I mean, it sounds like something from the 19th century. You know, that you would have heard like a band playing in there. It is a fun song. And
And
little Richard on the keyboards
I
and
was about to say I love Little Richard. Like when you hear John in the background, Richard, and then
yeah, and he just plays
I,
that little thing. Yeah, it's
um,
it's yeah, it's a real cool little song.
I really like the line, "Well, you can walk on water, but don't want to wet your feet." And
Yeah,
I think that kind of it makes me think of the part where I think wasn't it Kiefer Sutherland who took credit for murder, but he didn't do the murder. And I always thought that of that line to that part of the movie.
yeah, yeah. There's the Christian Slater character in the sequel that he keeps getting the shits because he kills the people, but it's always Billy the Kid that's getting the credit for it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it wasn't Kiefer.
No, I think it was the Christian Slater character and Arkansas Dave Rudabar. Yeah, I don't know whether he's based on a real guy, but yeah, he was. That was a motif going through the film. Christian Slater's character was saying, "You always get the credit for the kill, and I was the one who actually killed,
Yeah,
the person."
yeah.
But my favorite line in this one is, "You brought a knife out to a gunfight, and shouting that I'm dead. My old friend Smith and Wesson think you're in
I,
over your head." You
yeah,
know, it's just that's just genius lyrics.
yeah. And it's really good to because if you kind of compare this song to the rest of the album, this is definitely the most fun. It
Yeah,
wasn't all about sadness and
yeah. This and Billy Get Your Guns, I think, are the two that are kind of
yeah,
that stand
yeah.
out as being more about the fun side of the film and the characters. Yeah,
And I think this would be great to if John did this with like his side band, Kings of Suburbia.
yeah. I think it
I
would
think
be
this would be
really
a
cool song.
fun song
I
to,
think if they ripped it out, that fans would go crazy for it.
it's a good 2, 3 minute quick song, and I love it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so let's go to the next one, Bang and Drum, and
And
this was written by John, obviously, but then later on, what was his name? Chris Ledux or something like that.
Chris Ledoux or Ledoux, yeah, yeah.
He asked John permission to recreate it, and it actually features John, and he's in Chris's music video.
Yeah,
I think
John's in the video. He turns up. He drives up. It must have been around the time of. Was it around the time of Crush? I think John.
it
He's
was 90.
definitely cut his hair off at the time of the video.
It was 90.
Um, and I
The song,
always think that maybe it was, you know, that cover version maybe what got John ticking into his head that he could be a crossover into the country market. Because it was, yeah, I think it did pretty well. Chris Ledoux oh, I can never say his name, Chris Ledoux or Ledoux, but
Yeah.
he was a pretty popular country artist.
Did he pass away?
He did pass away. I think he passed away pretty young, not too long after that was released. Yeah,
That's sad. But the song I think is all about it's a code of honor, honoring those who are experiencing hardships. It's similar to a prayer, like say a
yeah,
prayer, bang a drum instead.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
the line that I like, and I think it's all about being a leader and doing things your way. I don't know where all the rivers run. I don't know how far. I don't know how come. Well, I'm going to
Yeah,
die that each step that I take ain't worth the ground I walk on if we don't walk it our way.
yeah.
And
That's a good.
the way he delivers that in the song too.
Yeah, yeah. It's a really cool song, and yeah, it's got a real soulful feel to it. And I think again the backing vocals add a lot to this song as well.
Especially, yeah.
Yeah, it's got like a almost a gospel feel to it.
Hmm.
Kind of a maybe a throwback to "Lay Your Hands on Me" or something like that, where it's yeah, it's again, you look at track by track. There's something different about all the tracks on this album. And this is another one that I love. The line about his brother. Called upon my brother just the other day. He said, "I'm gonna die if I don't start live again. Work each day not like clockwork, trying to make ends meet. I could kick this bad world's ass if I could just get on my feet." It's just it's just such a killer lyric.
When you
It's
got the potential, but you're down on your luck.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I also love the ending of the song too. Oh, how's it go? It was something too, but as long as my heart keeps on banging, I got a reason to believe. And the way he
yeah.
sings "to believe," I think that's a great way to start to
And then
end.
it's got the female vocals
Yep,
singing the hallelujahs on the outro as well. Is
yep,
Yeah, works really well.
such a good
Yeah,
one. Um,
yeah.
Next one, "Dying Ain't Much of a Living." This is probably next to "Blood Money." This is probably one of the saddest songs
It's
on the
such a sad song.
and
It's yeah,
I think it's really about because you had that intro too. You wrote a 15-year-old boy straight to his grave, the rest of us straight to hell. I think it's all about obviously that little boy that got killed in the movie. The one he wanted to be like Billy the Kid. He wanted to be a cowboy, and he finally got to go along for the ride. He ends up dying. But it really relates to the movie. Being a young cowboy and just shooting at each other all day. And it's funny too because Billy the Kid shows remorse for that boy, and then that's when he wants to start to seek forgiveness. And I think to sum up the entire album, this is the perfect spot to put because technically, if you don't count Guano City, this is a perfect
yeah.
way to end the album because it
It
shows
is. Yeah,
that Billy the Kid has remorse and has empathy for this 14-year-old kid. And, in the line, dying ain't much of a living when you're living on the run. That's where Billy the Kid was. He was always on the run, trying to survive, and where to next,
yeah.
and just avoid to die. What's your take on the song?
I think it's an amazing song. It's like you say, it's a very dark, sad song. But it is one that I think it's a perfect way to end the album. And I think having Elton John's vocal on it as well is such a strong part of the song as well. It's yeah, it's such a dark lyric for a Bon Jovi song, which is kind of what makes it stand out. I think.
I think the real special touch to this song too, that adds a lot of dynamic, is at the end where when John sings "na na na na."
Yeah,
That's kind of how it starts to end the song. I thought that was a really good touch to the song too.
and again, and the music video for it is awesome. The I don't know who directed it, to be honest, but it's got a real. It was from what I understand, the music video took a lot of inspiration from a short story that was written.
Because I think the video came out years later.
It was on the Keep the Faith
Video VHS, yeah,
video
that's right.
compilation, but I tried to find out who directed it. But it's a really cinematic video, and it's got this really
It doesn't
you know
have John in it at all either.
sepia look to it. It's no, it's yeah, the visuals don't really correlate to the lyrics, but it's kind of in the video. It's about a guy who's on the run from the war, and he's got a kid, and the cops are and at the end of the video, it's him hanging off a bridge. Obviously, he's killed himself, and it's just like, wow, this is dark shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, I haven't seen that video in a long time. And I know it's on. I have to watch that later.
yeah, have a look at it because it's got this really strange color palette. It's like a sepia
Yeah,
color palette to it,
I,
and
I've seen it many times. I know that John's not, and it's kind of like a lot of people forget that there is a music video to it because it doesn't have.
yeah. I don't
Uh,
think it wasn't officially released as a single. It just the video just came out. Yeah.
yeah, I think like you said because I think it came from a short story somewhere else, and I think someone got John's permission to make a video out of it.
Yeah.
Put on the Keep the Faith thing, but I don't think it was really on VH1 or MTV back then,
No,
right? Uh,
I don't think. I don't think it did. I think the first time I probably seen it was on that Keep the Faith compilation.
Um, my favorite line is, "But the night's there to remind me of the guns in the early graves. The ghosts appear as I fall asleep to sing an outlaw serenade."
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and
What's your
snake
line?
bite. Yeah, snake bite's not my enemy, but it taught me how to fight. Yeah, it's how about turning a bad thing into a positive? It's
Exactly.
yeah,
And I think John's vocals on this tour are just so good. Like that line was "spirits they intoxicate me." I
yeah.
love the way that he. Is that the right song?
That's in Santa Fe, but yeah,
That's
it's a similar
that's
vocal
right. I wanted
delivery
to
on this
mention
one.
that earlier. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's yeah. But anyway, the vocals in "Dying Ain't Much of Living" is really good too. Um,
Yeah, the vocal's great, and it's the way he harmonizes with Elton John on it as well is pretty cool.
yeah,
And again, the guitar, it's just this really mournful guitar sound. It's kind of like a wail in a way. It's just got a great
yeah.
atmosphere to the song. Yeah, a very dark way to end the album, but I think it's a one thing about the album. I think to sum up, it's one that it's very underrated from a critical point of view. But I think fans realize what a great album it is.
Yeah. It's
John being
see,
the John being the main, the principal. Well, he writes all the songs, but also it's a very coherent album. I think from start to finish. Because it is. I think John said if he was writing a solo album per se, like he did with Destination Anywhere, the themes would have been broader, but
yeah. I
start to
think
finish, it's a very
right. I think one of the great things about this album and Destination Anywhere is, and even with Richie's solo albums or David's solo album, you really get to see their artistic style. You get to see
yeah,
what they kind of bring to the table to the band, and it was really good. Like, I always thought Destination Anywhere was one of John's most open albums that he's ever written, and
yeah,
I think when he's with the band, he kind of has a wall of what he can put out and not. But
absolutely, yeah,
solo albums, he
yeah.
goes right through it. Um, but we can't forget about Guanas. I feel like we have to at least mention Guanas. There isn't really much there to talk about.
Well, I mean that's it. Guano City, and like a lot of the it's a shame that the album only had that from Alan Silvestri on it, because there's quite a few other. If you watch the movie, his score is really cool throughout the film, and it doesn't feature on the album. But it's a, I think it does. It's a really exciting orchestral piece. I think it's short, it's sharp, but it's it's a cool way to round it all off.
Yeah, and I kind of would like, I don't really listen to Guana City. I know it's good and stuff. I just, it doesn't really have anything to do with fun. I don't know, but I always thought that Ain't Much of a Living would have been a perfect way to end the album too, because but in a dark way. As we talked about how dark that song is, I think it would have been a great way to kind of end the
Yeah,
album. But because that pretty much sums up what the end of the movie is about. You realize that it's time to go and
yeah,
stuff like that. But anyway, so yeah, it's a great album, and yeah, it's a great album.
yeah. It's still one that, like I said, I go back to it regularly, because it's
What's
got
your favorite
something
track?
nice to it. If I had to pick a favorite track, I'd probably be torn between Miracle and Santa Fe, to be honest.
Yeah, Miracle Santa Fe. Okay, yeah, those are good ones. Um, yeah. So, well, anyway, I want to thank you for coming on. It was great to chat with you
Thanks
about
for
the
having
album
me.
and the movie. And I hope you stay safe over there, and we'll chat soon, buddy.
Yeah,
All right. Thanks, buddy.
look after yourself, mate.
You
Take
too.
care.